The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. Today is Wednesday, December 11th, 2019. Thanks so much for joining us. I want to go through a very interesting poll from Quinnipiac. I'm sure if you're online at all, you saw this poll. Democratic primary voters under 35 via Quinnipiac. Sanders is at 52%. Warren is at 17%. Biden, 11%. Who are these 11% of people under 35 who like Biden? Andrew Yang, 7%. Gabbard, 3%. Buttigieg, 2%. Bloomberg, 2%. I believe that would be all of his paid staff. And everyone else is 1% or less, according to Quinnipiac. I've said it before. I will say it again. Sanders didn't lose in 2016. As evidenced by this. The future of American politics on the left, left of center, basically anyone who isn't a part of the death cult that is the Republican Party. The future is with politicians and leaders who align with the revolution that Bernie Sanders started. Well, let me rephrase that. It's not that Bernie Sanders started, that Bernie Sanders consistently was a part of before anybody else who's in the game right now was a part of it. So he didn't start it. The revolution was always there, but he was consistently entrenched in it his entire career. And now America is starting to catch up with him, particularly young people. I don't think under 35 is necessarily young. Young is like 25, but it's relatively young. And that's where the future is. So if people who are 35 and under, young adults and millennials and Zoomers, go out and vote in record numbers, this primary is a foregone conclusion. Period. Now, if you juxtapose this with an internal Democratic Party poll that they took this past week, and in that internal Democratic Party poll, they selected Hillary Clinton as the front runner. Now, thankfully, that will never manifest. Knock on wood. I do believe it is far too late for her to try to get back into the race. I think it would be extremely devastating in terms of detrimental, not devastating, but very detrimental in terms of actually winning against Donald Trump. For whatever reason, I don't necessarily agree with it, but for whatever reason, there is a deeply seated hatred for Hillary Clinton that some of it justified, yes, but then some of it goes into a level of irrationality and fixation that will drive people who otherwise are tired of Trump. They will awaken from their disgust with Trump and be reminded of how much they irrationally hate Hillary Clinton. And I think hopefully she's smart enough to realize that and will never get back into national politics again, at least as a candidate. But I wanted to juxtapose what's happening internally in the Democratic Party with what's happening outside of the Democratic Party. See, we laugh at the Republicans and say that the Republicans are dying out. They're going to be old. And, that was a common trope for many, many years. And we see now that that's absolutely not true. There's a renaissance. There's a new generation of racists. There's a new generation of people who buy into the evils of capitalism. So they're going to be just fine in terms of the youth. But if you look at what's happening inside of the Democratic Party machine, and you look at what's happening on the outside of the Democratic Party machine in terms of people 35 and under, you will see that the Democratic Party is out of sync with their base, and they are out of sync with the people who are going to replace them. If they're lucky, they will be replaced by this generation. If they're not lucky, then an entirely different party will emerge. Or even if a different party doesn't emerge, we can continue on the track that we're going towards, which is absolutely no difference between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. So that's it. Sanders is, as you would expect, and a lot of people, I don't know why. I don't know why this is a question. People are like, why do young people like this old guy? I mean, come on. Do we have to be that intentionally obtuse? Can you, for a moment, realize that it has zero to do with age? The least liked person for me in this entire race is the one who's younger than me. I think Pete Buttigieg is 37, 38, so he's right there near me. I'm 30. What am I, Jada? I'm 39. So yes, he's younger than me. And he is literally the last person I would ever vote for. I would, in fact, vote for Joe Biden over Pete Buttigieg, because at least Joe Biden is honest with what he doesn't want to do for America. Like Joe Biden will look at you and say, no, we're not going to do Medicare for all because we're not going to do it. Get over it. Pete Buttigieg will give you the best sincere look that he can possibly conjure up. And he'll say something like, oh, yes, we're definitely going to have the most progressive platform. These are really big ideals, and we're going to do Medicare for all. Who want it? Which basically means you ain't getting shit. So it has absolutely nothing to do with age. The 37-year-old in this campaign is the most disgusting, in my opinion. But when people ask that question, I'm like, I really have to pause and ask, do you even do politics? Do you even do rational thought? Because it has nothing to do with age. It has everything to do with a platform, because we have a generation of young people who have grown up under nothing but a neoliberal economic paradigm brought to you first by Ronald Reagan in 1981. Just to be sure that people understand that when I say neoliberalism, it has nothing to do with the Democratic Party. It has everything to do with the economic system brought to us by conservatives, embraced by the Democratic Party. And we have an entire generation of young people who have never experienced anything else but neoliberalism. And of course, they're going to be drawn to a person who's telling us, and has been telling us all along, that there is a better way to do things. That we don't have to have this, that there was a better way to do things just before we were born. The boomers, millennials only have 1/7 of what boomers had at our same age. Think about that. The cost of living, the ability to go to college without getting in debt. All of those things are gone, and we have been exposed to nothing but a system that is designed perfectly to pillage and plunder all of our wealth, to take all of our labor, to extract everything it can from us and leave us with nothing but debt and then die. So of course we're going to be attracted to the platform of a person if he's 80 years old and he's telling us that there's a better way that we can do things in this country. And that's why the future of the Democratic Party is Bernie Sanders style politics.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
You know what time it is, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for the Patron Party. A very special thank you to our two newest patrons, Karen M. How do you pronounce that, Karen? McEntry? McEntire. I have no idea, and I apologize for massacring your name. But thank you for becoming a patron. And also a very special thank you to Philbo Schwaggins. Is that... I'm sorry. I'm not laughing at your name. I'm just pausing to think that what has happened so many times is that I've gotten quite a few patrons who give me like, I think I have one patron whose name is IP Freely, right? Now, they're supporting the show, but they do stuff like that just so that I could say it on the air. So I had to pause and say, I had to read it to see if you were trying to troll me with the name. But regardless, troll me with the name. That's fine. But become a patron by going to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show. Okay, so President Trump, according to the New York Times, President Trump plans to sign an executive order on Wednesday targeting what he sees as anti-Semitism on college campuses by threatening to withhold federal money from educational institutions that fail to combat discrimination, according to three administration officials. Reading again from the New York Times, the order will effectively interpret Judaism as a race or nationality, not just a religion, to prompt a federal law penalizing colleges and universities deemed to be shirking their responsibility to foster an open climate for minority students. In recent years, the boycott, divestment, and sanctions, or BDS movement against Israel has roiled some campuses, leaving some Jewish students feeling unwelcomed or attacked. That's interesting, right? There has been a concerted effort in this country for years not just from the Republican Party, not just from Donald Trump. I mean, what's coming to mind right now is Governor Cuomo in New York, when he attempted to make it illegal to boycott, divest, and sanction Israel by saying that the state of New York was going to boycott, divest, and sanction anyone who boycotted, divested, and sanctioned Israel. In other words, he was using the power of the state to tell you that you did not have the right to boycott. Well, now this has evolved to the federal level, with Donald Trump using an executive order to try to essentially do the same thing, penalizing colleges. Now, what you're not going to hear for sure, you're not going to hear anything from free speech advocates, or rather people who use the banner of free speech in order to suppress other people's speech. And this is a thing, right? You know, for true free speech advocates are going to fight for everyone to be able to say what they want in most cases. But there are people who are running around this country like Richard Spencer. I want to play this clip of Richard Spencer during an interview, making it plain what he really believes about freedom of speech.
I mean, yes, I think in the short term we would favor government regulation of speech, but long term, are we even pro free speech?
No, of course not. But we have to use this platform in order.
So we're being radically honest here.
Yes, yeah. Radically pragmatic. Yes.
So that's the context is that you have to understand free speech. A lot of the people running around the country yelling free speech are really using it as a means of getting their voice advanced. And as soon as they get an opportunity, they will crush everyone else's voice. All right. So I bring that up because in light of what Donald Trump is attempting to do, the specific reason is to crush anyone who wants to boycott, divest, or sanction Israel. So basically anyone who disagrees with the state of Israel, the nation of Israel, they will be targeted by this executive order. So essentially, by reinterpreting Judaism to be a nationality and a race, then what he has now done, particularly the nationality portion, what he has done is created the scenario where if anyone criticizes the nation of Israel, the state of Israel, what they're doing in Palestine, what they are doing in terms of human rights, anyone who has criticism of what they do with their military, who they kill, then anyone who speaks out against that is now anti-Semitic. And if it's happening on colleges and universities, then the federal government can penalize them by withholding funds. Can you imagine not being able to speak out about America and our crimes globally? Just looking at imagine someone saying this about Saudi Arabia, saying that if you criticize Saudi Arabia, then you're being an Islamophobe. Now, first and foremost, that's never going to happen in this country, but that's analogous to what's happening with Donald Trump's executive order. And the target of it always has been to stifle any type of criticism of the state of Israel. And now, if you want to put a fine point on how ridiculous and how utterly turned around our society is, the National Review put out an article yesterday talking about Bernie Sanders, the Jewish candidate, the Jewish frontrunner, calling him basically anti-Semitic because he has proximity to people who criticize Israel. This is the thing about it. And what's maddening about this is that we're criticizing a nation that has a foreign policy and has a list of human rights violations that otherwise 100% should receive this criticism. And because Bernie Sanders, who is Jewish, criticizes the nation of Israel and stands in solidarity with the people of Palestine, in America, he can be called anti-Semitic. While Donald Trump the other day at the Israeli-American Council gave a speech filled with anti-Semitic tropes, and no one bats an eye. No one from the conservative persuasion. So it really is. I mean, there's a deeper conversation that I have had on this show several times. I've had the conversation with Professor Matt Sinkowitz, and we've outlined this unholy alliance between right-wing fascism, right-wing authoritarianism, and even white supremacy. And we find that people like Ben Shapiro becoming in league with people who are otherwise white supremacists because of positions like this, where it would give a blanket protection to the entirety of the state of Israel not based on their faith, but based on anything that they do in terms of foreign policy, human rights violations. Now they have this cover blanket, according to the president, with an executive order. So we have the intersection of free speech along with this unholy alliance that we've seen. And we've seen it go even as far as Benjamin Netanyahu being in league on the global stage with people who clearly are white supremacists. But the point is to position the right wing authority. And it's, again, to be sure, Israel itself is not monolithic. The Jewish faith, people of Jewish faith, they are not monolithic. And I'm sure that there are going to be quite a few who are going to shout at the top of their lungs against this. But what it is it is a right wing alliance across the globe that transcends race, that transcends nationality, and transcends religion. And because they transcend those things to hold on to their right-wing authoritarianism, that's how we see these unholy alliances with people who historically, well, you know history. Okay, Pete Buttigieg, I was going to leave him alone just a little bit, not because he doesn't deserve it, but because I just kind of got tired of talking about him so much. But he released a list of the 9 clients that he used to work for at McKinsey, which has been quite the controversy because everyone knows the type of work that McKinsey and company has been engaged in. And we wanted to know what type of work he did for them. And turns out that one of the clients he worked for on behalf of McKinsey was Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. And the time that he worked for them in 2007 was just prior to the 1,000 jobs that they laid off individuals. He did a cost analysis for them in 2007, 2009. They laid off 1,000 people. This is how he decided to defend it on Rachel Maddow last night.
When you did that sort of cost and overhead assessment for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, a couple of years after that, they laid off like 1,000 people. Was your work part of what led to those layoffs?
I doubt it. I don't know what happened in the time after I left. That was in 2007 when they decided to shrink in 2009. Mm-hmm. Now, what I do know is that there are some voices in the Democratic primary right now who are calling for a policy that would eliminate the job of every single American working at every single insurance company in the country.
Oh, I think it's safe to say that Pete Buttigieg has ascended to the heights of fuckboyism. He has most certainly, in order to defend his layoffs, he's now saying that the thing that we should focus on is that because we're trying to get Medicare for all, a lot of other people are going to get their jobs laid off. Well, here's the thing. When you laid people off in 2009, your work in 2007 helped lay people off in 2009 because it takes time to lay off 1,000 people. It doesn't just happen overnight, right? And I loved his language, shrink. No, bitch, they did not shrink. They laid people off, right? Let's just be sure. But that language there is an intentional decision crafted by his messaging team in order to try to soften the blow of what his actions really took place. Trust me, it would take about a year at a minimum to lay off 1,000 people. Okay. And so when those people got laid off, Pete, it's a good possibility if they did not have jobs to replace it, that they lost their health care. And that they had to go into a system like Cobra, which takes your regular cost of healthcare, which is already exorbitant, and triples it, quadruples it in some cases. And you end up paying a premium of $2,000 a month to keep your family covered. That's what your work did. People who are fighting for Medicare for all will create a system that no matter where you work, even if you get laid off, you still have health coverage, you disingenuous prick. So I covered the impeachment, articles of impeachment. I didn't play any audio of it yesterday, and nor did I read the specific language of it, because you know what? I don't care. I don't care when the Democratic Party has given Donald Trump a victory with this trade deal, that the trade deal itself, what is wrong with the Democratic Party? I mean, that's a rhetorical question, because I can give you a long list of things that is wrong with the Democratic Party. One of the number one things that's wrong with the Democratic Party is the type of Democrats that we have been electing for too long. And the type of Democrats who are trying to hold on to a time that is far gone, that was probably never existed. That's what we talked about yesterday. But I'm really of the opinion that we are we are at the place where we absolutely have to send an entirely different breed of Democrat to Washington, D.C., because they are getting ready, not only to Washington, D.C., but all throughout the Democratic Party, top to bottom, because they are getting ready to give the White House to Donald Trump again. And when I tell you 4 years of Donald Trump has created enough damage that it will take, I'm going to have nothing but white hairs by the time we can undo some of his damage. It's going to take 40 and 50 years to undo some of the stuff that Donald Trump has done just in these 4 years. Can you imagine what 4 more years will do of it? And while we are looking with disgust and we're looking with shock and horror at the things that Donald Trump is doing, his constituency they're celebrating him like he's the greatest thing since Jesus Christ. And yet we have Democrats, top to bottom, who are, honestly, even Barack Obama, he put out a little cute video yesterday about why you need to go and sign up for Obamacare, which you do. If you need insurance, the 15th is coming. I think the 15th is Saturday. I got to go ahead and finish up my paperwork and get that shit done. But where is he on all the other issues? Like what he's talking about, coming out against Bernie Sanders if Bernie Sanders is too popular. We got the DNC, we got the mainstream media who does everything they possibly can to exclude Bernie Sanders from the conversation. And I'm not saying that Bernie Sanders is the savior by any measure. I have more criticisms of Bernie Sanders, some that I can't even say on air, but plenty of them that I have said on air, top to bottom. Plenty of criticisms of Bernie Sanders. But the time is so critical that we cannot afford to send any more Democrats to Washington, D.C. or any part of this country that are to the right of Bernie Sanders. We can't afford to send a Pete Buttigieg, a Joe Biden, because they are going to triangulate. First of all, they're going to lose. I think that's the first and foremost. They will lose. And if by chance they got lucky and they win, then they will certainly continue to push this country towards the right through triangulation and capitulation. Just giving in to what Republicans want, because what this breed of Democrat wants is to just get along. Can't we all just get along? No, the hell we cannot. Because the things that they are doing to this country, the things that they are doing to people, the things that they're doing to us financially, economically, it's devastating. And we can't always look at we have to stop looking at Republican morons who are, sadists, and they love the pain that Republicans cause them. They consistently vote against their best economic interests, but they still love it. You know why they still love it? Because the Republican Party represents the bigotry that they would gladly exchange their economic viability for. Everyone keeps saying that, we just have to appeal to the working class of the Republican Party and, let's just back off of the identity politics and try to, appeal to their material self-interest. These fools have been voting against their economic best interests for generations. You think they're going to change their mind now? So we can't spend time reaching out for those voters or blaming those voters. We have to realize that the problem has been and continues to be that we are not sending Democrats up there who are going to fight these fools. We're sending Democrats who's looking to go get a bourbon with their colleague after hours. Meanwhile, that colleague, sure, that Republican colleague will gladly go and sip a bourbon with you. And as soon as they're done sipping that bourbon with you, they're going to their clandestine meeting where they have been planning for 40 years all of the things that they're doing to this country. What are they doing? I mean, you see the tax breaks that they have given to the wealthiest people in this country, the tax breaks that they have given to corporations. Capital gains taxes 15%, and yet I gotta write my poor ass has to write a check to the government every goddamn year. You see what they're doing to the courts, what they're doing to a woman's right to choose, what they're doing on immigration, what they're doing, hell, now what Donald Trump is doing, elevating Judaism to be a nationality. I don't feel like that's an elevation. I think that's degrading to the faith. What they're doing to this country. And we have Democrats like Nancy Pelosi who's giving him a win on a deal that otherwise, okay, it's too early in the morning for me to be blowing a gasket. But what I will say is that we don't need to send another Democrat to D.C. that's to the right of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Not a one. And when we send them, we don't need to send some pacifist kumbaya, can't we all get along Democrat. We need fighters up there who will go up there and knock some heads together, politically speaking, take no prisoners, politically speaking, to eviscerate them and disembowel them, politically speaking, because that is what the Republican Party has been doing to this entire country forever. Well, not forever, but for the last 40 years. But I'm only 39 years old. For me, that's been forever. And you wonder why young people rock with Bernie Sanders. Because we have been living underneath a paradigm that the Democratic Party has been complicit with. The Democratic Party saw how much money was being poured into the coffers of the Republican Party by businesses because of the tax breaks, that Ronald Reagan gave them in 1981. And the Democrats were like, well, how can we get some of this? Enter in Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton enters in, and all he is a Republican who, I don't know, liked to play the saxophone. His whole mantra was the era of big government is over. And because the Democrats have been consistently moving to the right for 40 years, Republicans have had to find a way to distinguish themselves. And so they've gone full white nationalist, white supremacist, with a couple of colored people sprinkled in so that they can hide behind them saying all the racist shit that they want to say. And what are Democrats doing? They're only impeaching him because otherwise it would be a complete abdication of their responsibility, their constitutional duty. But simultaneously, they're going to give him a win on trade. If we don't start sending, I'm telling you, man, it is almost too late. I do believe that I believe that there's a good possibility without a candidate who can galvanize an entire movement to the polls, Donald Trump is going to win. And if Donald Trump wins and we do not send the right Democrats in the House and in the Senate who will fight this man, and not just fight Donald Trump, but fight against the economic system that people are rebelling against. That's the thing. It's like, do we need to fight against Donald Trump? Absolutely. But on both fronts. We have to fight against him on both fronts. And what we have is a Democratic Party who is complicit economically. That's why I'm super proud that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has parted ways with Nancy Pelosi, particularly on the HB3 bill, the drug pricing bill, where the Democrats were giving the facade that this bill is going to negotiate prices down for prescription drugs, but without any significant penalty attached to it for companies that overcharge, right? So it gives the appearance that it's going to do something good for the people. But in actuality, when it plays out without a penalty, what's going to stop? What's going to stop prescription drug companies? We have to send fighters. We have to send an entirely different breed of Democrat, because we have gotten to the place that we are now because of them, not just because of Republicans, but because of the complicity of Democrats.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.